Time to bid farewell again to a good old friend, because we're talking movies. We're talking Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, starring Harrison Ford, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, and Mads Mikkelsen. Written by Jez Butterworth, John Henry Butterworth, David Cope, and James Mangold, who also directed. You haven't been forced to drink the blood of Kali and tortured with voodoo.
You stole it. You stole it. Then I stole it. It's called capitalism. Dun, 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 dun. Hey, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of How'd You Like That Movie? If you can't tell by my humming of a John Williams score, as Scott said, we're talking Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. So, Scott, take us away.
All right.
Whip it good.
Well, like that, they missed that in this film. But so I'm gonna say this. I think going into this movie, I think there's just some questions most audience members are probably gonna have going in. One, with this being the only installment of the series that Spielberg didn't direct.
What? What the fuck?
Will it feel like an authentic indie movie? And with everything going in, all the marketing, this is Harrison Ford's last hurrah. Are they going to give Indy a proper send-off? So before I get into my opinion on those questions, I would say how I would describe this film is like a nice warm blanket. It wraps you around with a little sense of security, and it doesn't veer too far off from other films. But you can also make a hell of a lot of those Leonardo DiCaprio memes from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood with all the callback references they made to the other films with this movie.
Oh, 100%. And actually, I'm gonna go right to my quote because I think you're kind of saying the same thing. So Brian Talauco from RobertEbert.com said, "The Dial of Destiny is a hard movie to truly hate, which is nice. It's also an Indiana Jones movie that's difficult to truly love, which makes this massive fan of the original trilogy a little sad." And I would agree. I would say it's number 3 out of the films. And I'm going to talk about some of the other films. Specifically, I rewatched Temple of Doom. That is a fucking cringy movie, man, especially in 2023. There's a whole lot of inappropriate fucking stuff. But we'll get there. I would argue that depending on my mood, Raiders or Last Crusade is first, right? It just depends on what kind of vibe I'm looking for. Raiders of the Lost Ark is much more of your standard 80s, not action movie. It feels more actually like a drama with action in it. And then, Last Crusade is super fun. It's got Sean Connery. It's like, I would actually say that The Last Crusade is sort of like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is to all of Quentin Tarantino's film. And drink. It kind of just wrapped up the series really well at the time. It hit all the great points. It had some new stuff, and it's actually perfect. It's a perfect film. This definitely comes in as number 3. It's better than Crystal Skull, and it's definitely better than fucking Temple of Doom. I really was like, oh, I don't think Temple of Doom's that bad a film. And then I rewatched it, and I was like, ugh, it's almost unwatchable. And Crystal Skull is pretty bad. So anyway, yeah, what do you think?
Out of your rankings? Yeah.
Or just out of all this stuff I just threw on the table.
Okay, so in terms of the series, so Temple of Doom, I'm going to say you're incorrect because that's the first one I watched. I watched Temple of Doom first before ever watching.
Okay,
Raiders.
What am I incorrect about? That it's cringy as shit in 2023?
Well, one, I think out of all the indies, I love the opening of Temple of Doom.
Are you fucking crazy?
Because it's such a clawback. Especially after watching Babylon, it is like a callback to all those like first like talkie films where they're dancing and singing and like the big production. I
So okay,
like
I
that.
was watching. Okay, so I just that's funny that you bring
Yeah,
that up
it
because
is super rapey too.
it's
100% super
it's super
rapey.
rapey, it's super racist. But let's even just talk about that exact opening scene where they're doing like the Chinese version of Anything Goes, which is by Cole Porter. Anything Goes, by the way, was the first musical I ever saw. I saw it when I was in grade 6. That's when I knew I was a theater arts kid. Anyway, so fine, it opens. Da, 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 da. They go back into the dragon's mouth. And then there's this like massive production happening with like chorus lines and stuff like that that plays out for like 2 minutes. Then they come back out of the dragon. I was like, what? Because wasn't it, or was it early 80s or late 70s when Scorsese did like New York, New York? Like, what the fuck were with these directors being like, listen, I've got all these big hits. You know what I should do? A fucking musical. I should do a Broadway style musical.
You son of a bitch! I'm in.
Yeah, well, when was Barry London released?
Oh, wasn't barely. I thought Barry London was either like late 70s or early 80s. And it's not a musical. Barry Lyndon
Yeah,
is not
but
a musical.
but it is that like extravaganza, right? Like the big production pieces, like the big choreography.
But it's not a
in.
musical. I'm talking
Yeah,
specifically
but
about
I think it's
musicals.
just literally like a group of friends. Like, fuck, all right, you did this. I'm gonna top you with this, right? Like, do this,
I
right?
don't
Like,
know if
just like, hey,
Kubrick's
well,
not in that same circle of American filmmakers.
no,
I don't
him
think.
and Spielberg were friends.
Yeah.
That's why I think Spielberg was handpicked for AI because that was supposed to be Kubrick's last film before he
Gotcha, gotcha.
died.
Anyway, so where does Temple of Doom story rank on your list?
I would say it's probably like third.
When did you watch it last?
I rewatched them all except for Crystal Skull.
So,
Before going
so
this
in
one.
2023, you're still putting fucking Temple of Doom in 3?
And the reason why is because it's the one that it goes off a beating path, right? Like it's the only one, like no Nazis, and it's oh, I was gonna save this till the end, but I'll do it to you now. So I got a piece of trivia for you.
Oh
Okay.
shit, here we go. I'm never good at this stuff.
All right. So see if you can guess this. What part of theater history did Indiana Jones have that altered the cinematic experience to this day?
What? I don't understand the question.
So Indiana Jones, part of Indiana Jones changed cinematic history.
Like Indiana Jones the character or stuff within his world or
One
something?
of his films, yeah, one of his films changed cinematic history that it's still used to this day in theaters.
THX.
No.
Surround sound.
No.
I'm trying to think of like Lucas, like Industrial Light and Magic or something like that. I don't know, man. Bullwhips?
Nope.
Okay, just tell me.
The PG-13 rating.
Oh, really? How come?
Temple of Doom. Because of, it like back before Temple of Doom and Gremlins. So technically it's Spielberg too. There was just PG or rated R. So a lot of parents took their children to go watch Temple of Doom, not realizing there's going to be a guy who's going to be ripping people's hearts out. And it was like the more horror thing, right? And like it became
so they needed a rating between like family friendly and R.
Yeah. So
and PG-13 is what we got.
PG-13 is what you got, and literally it's Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. So that alone should give it some credos up your list because
buddy, seriously, changed. like the way they portray Chinese people, the whole Indian thing, like chew the monkey brain and eating snakes out of other snakes, and like it is just so fucking brutal. Oh, even just the whole white savior complex, like literal white savior, like Shiva sent you from sky, white man, save us. All right, I guess we're here on my way to Delhi. I'll fucking save your village. And wasn't Spielberg dicking the fucking lead actor as well? The
No,
female?
I was gonna say no, he wasn't dicking Harrison Ford to my knowledge, but that is his wife now. Yes,
Wife now? Like still his wife?
still his wife. To
Oh
my
wow.
knowledge, they're still married.
Well, there you go. Anyway, let's get back to Dial of Destiny. So what was your like, did you enjoy it? I'm assuming like you take your
Yeah,
kids? Like what's your jam?
I took my son. I took my son to watch it, and he's only watched prior to this. He only watched two. He only watched Last Crusade because I think that one is number one in terms of indie films because it is the perfect movie
Mm.
because you don't have to know anything prior, and that's the thing kind of I like about these, right? They are kind of standalones, and
Well,
then
and one of the things I actually really like about last, just as you say that it stands alone, is it was kind of cool to get a little bit of indie backstory at the very beginning. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like when you see the young Indiana Jones, unless you watch the young Indiana Jones Chronicles, which was fantastic, by the way. And that was the late actor
River Phoenix.
River Phoenix, and he was so good in that role. And finding out that spoiler alert, like Indiana is the name of the dog. You know what I mean? His name's
Yeah.
Junior. It's
But yeah, okay. So back to this one. Yeah, like I was like I said, it put a little smile on my face in terms of some of the scenes, some of the stuff. Um, there were some things that I thought was like I guess you could say for show, like it didn't really need to be there. Like the casting of Antonio Banderas to me that was just, you know, not worth it. Like,
well, what was like you could have had just
oh,
any
yeah,
person. I could have played that diver. Actually, I probably have more diving credentials than fucking Antonio Banderas, which as I was watching it, I was like, first off, sure, I understand using a bounce dive to like make sure that you don't get like either nitrogen narcosis or get the bends. But hey, you guys, have you ever dove before? Fuck it. Let's do some surface supply and go deep. Let's go. Like that's not
yeah.
happening. First off, I didn't see a single person clear their ears. They would have all burst their fucking eardrums. So
Okay, I didn't need that detail, but I'm just saying, like to me, it was kind of a waste, right? Because you're supposed to have this really big, technically spoilers, emotional impact to what happens to his character after, but you really were only introduced to him 60 seconds before.
mm-hmm.
Right? Like they were supposed to be really good friends and everything like that. I'm guessing it was past adventures or whatever. But to me, I think it was kind of wasted because you didn't really feel like Indy has this emotional response at the end, but you don't really feel it because you never really
Well, and that character, that it's not like Sala. At least Sala comes from Raiders of the Lost Ark. Like we've never heard of this character. It's just like me and Indy, we're best friends. Never ever heard of you. Now I'm not in the story anymore. Indiana Jones very sad. Like, yeah, it could have just been I got some
it could have
diver
been
friends.
Sala, yeah.
Or just it could have been him, or even that, like, oh, Sala's driving a taxi. Like, I get it. Sure. Interesting. Okay. So Sala is played by
John Rhys Davies.
John Rhys Davies, who I just realized I found when I was doing it, he was Gimli, because I never real
and Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, the whole way they did Lord of the Rings,
yeah,
it's pretty impressive. He is not even at all. He's like Welsh. Like this whole idea, like a Welsh actor is playing like an Egyptian, and then they get it. They're like, well, we got to use the same actor. Plays a fucking Middle Eastern person again. I was like, okay, well, maybe he's in Wales, but maybe he's got like Arabic descent or something. No, mom and dad, both Welsh, 100% Welsh.
Yeah, like to me, that doesn't matter. Like it's literally just the actor who's done it from the beginning. You're not going to recast
I just thought
him.
it was, but I'd never looked up his background. I thought even in the original, he could have been Egyptian, could have been an Egyptian actor.
See, I would say that's the key to a good actor there. He brought you in. He made you believe.
It was the hat. It was the fez. That's what sold me. And he's still wearing the fucking fez in New York in like the 60s.
Yeah. Well, yeah, with the exception of Temple, right? They've always had those like the people wearing the fez. And that was the thing. I was kind of like, searching for this artifact there wasn't any like secret society that's protecting it either. Like I kind of missed that in my indie films. You had that in Raiders, you had that in Lost Ark.
Whoa. What's the secret society protecting it in Raiders? What's the secret society protecting it in Temple of Doom? They stole some fucking rocks.
Not in Temple of Doom. In
and
Last
Raiders,
Crusade.
it's just buried in the fucking desert. It's not being protected by anything.
What was there not like the Shriners that were protecting them too?
No. There were Shriners that fought Indiana Jones, and there's that famous scene where the guy's got the sword and he's like, yeah. And I guess Harrison Ford was like sick that day. And he's like, I would just shoot this guy. And he's like, all right, do that. Bang. And it's like classic scene. Yeah. Bang.
Yeah. And they had the callback to that in this movie.
They did?
It was the reverse. It was him with the whip in the casino. And then every single person throws a gun at him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, fair enough. I felt it was definitely a bit long. It's 154 minutes, like almost 2.5 hours, just over 2.5 hours. It did not need to be that long. Even the opening sequence with the Nazis, which I thought like there was some really cool shit going on there. It definitely took longer than it needed to.
Yeah, like well, I think that's kind of like this. There was, you could tell by our intro, there's a lot of writers on this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Because Spielberg and David Hope, I apologize if I mispronounced the last name. They were working on this film for 3 years, and then Spielberg backed out. They hired James Mangold, and he brought in his Ford versus Ferrari team of the Butterworths. And they kind of reworked the script, right? And that's the thing, I think, because spoilers, to my understanding, the original ending wasn't going back to the BC time.
No, it was supposed to be, I think, Munich, like
Germany.
It
was
Germany.
Supposed to be like the time paradox where the older Indy and the older Mads are chasing, and then
they run into each other or something like that, right?
Yeah. So I think that's why that beginning was so long, was to set up. Technically, my guess is there was probably stuff you would see in terms of like the Lance being a fake. They probably was the original, and then they're the ones that like flicked it when you go back in time, kind of thing. But once they took that out, you didn't need it anymore, but they just kept it all in.
So so I want to ask about something. Okay, so spoiler, everybody just plug their ears for a second. When Mads gets hit in the beginning in like 1939 or 1945 or whatever, and he gets hit off the train, how the fuck did he survive that? I expected Mads to show up with a fucking mangled Mads face. He's fucking fine. He basically got like Wile E. Coyote fucking smacked off the side of the train. No problem.
Grab my hand!
Like, do you know what? That's exactly what I'm talking about, right?
Did he get off the train?
He got fucking smoked. Remember, he's like climbing up the side of the fucking train. He gets smoked.
Yeah, and he had the gun.
Yes, and then he gets like hit by like a post or something.
Oh yeah. Fuck. Yeah, I forgot that part.
So when we first see him, I thought, oh, this guy's gonna have like a fucked up face, and he's not. And I'm like, what? Did you guys just forget about the first part of the movie you just shot?
People don't forget.
Yeah, I guess so. But
did your son like it?
Yeah, he enjoyed it. I was like, oh, are you gonna go watch the other ones now? He's like, there's no point. He was like, I know how it ends now.
I know how it ends. Does he not know that the other ones, like you said, are standalone films?
Yeah, that's what I told him. He was like, yeah, but now I know how it ends.
This is definitely like it felt, so this is the first film done since Disney has taken over. Or did they do Crystal Skull?
No, they did Crystal Skull.
Crystal Skull.
Yeah.
And they definitely has that Disney feel. The standard like 4-quadrant trying to hit, below 25, over 25, male, female demographic. Like it's got that Disney panache to it. Like, let's try and please fucking everybody. Which I think is actually like to the detriment of these films. I would argue the same thing with Star Wars. It's similar to Return of the Jedi, how it's basically just like as muppety as possible. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But like again, I think the one thing with this, and we can kind of discuss it because it leads towards the end of the film as well, um, is they don't know how to say goodbye. Like they don't know technically how to end this, right? Like you go in and they leave technically that ending is open-ended, right? Would you say the last shot?
Yeah, it could be the end or it could be the beginning.
Yeah, like to me,
Like Marion and Jones could be off on their own adventures.
yeah, like to me, I think this is what happened, right? So we're gonna go spoilers. Come Crystal Skull, somebody had a really big mouth, and that's why he's not in this movie.
Yeah, that's well. They said that wasn't necessarily true, but I definitely think
100%.
yeah, and some problematic behavior. I think it was just like, oh, first off, you should probably never talk shit about Steven Spielberg if you've been in a Steven Spielberg movie, or if you ever want to be like, I will never get to be in a Steven Spielberg movie, mostly because I talk shit about it. That's really the only reason I'm not going to be in a Steven Spielberg movie.
Listen, I'm already been recast as Indy because I love Steven Spielberg. I'm Brody in the Jaws remake. But listen, but yeah, so I think that was problematic, but also because you know, it's Phoebe, right? Phoebe Waller-Bridge.
Yep.
Because in hindsight, everything her character is technically really what Shia LaBeouf's character most likely would have been, right?
Yeah, and again, I read that
of Indy.
She's also like a younger version of Marion Ravencrest, right? So
yeah, but technically
Ravenwood, not Ravencrest. That's like Harry Potter or some shit.
Yeah, so instead of archaeology trying to preserve everything from museums, you're grabbing shit to sell it to the highest bidder. So but don't get me wrong, I think she did an amazing job. But I also think in terms of the ending, I think this is what happened, right? He grabs that, so they're there, so you see the pan, you're seeing the hat for some reason being dried, because he's wet somehow after a couple of weeks in a coma, and that's when he tells her about going back in time. So yeah, so technically they can only go back to time to that time in BC, but now he can go. They go back. Him and Marion go back in time. They fuck up the Romans, and now while they're back in time, they're leaving some clues to make sure that Mutt never goes into Vietnam, and that changes history. That's his last adventure.
So it's Indiana Jones, Back to the Future, in the DeLorean with Marion Ravenwood.
It's your kids, Marty. Something has got to be done about your kids.
Could you imagine?
You gotta go back in time.
They're leaving little clues while all the Nazis'
that is the worst fucking.
Listen, while all the Nazis' faces are getting melted from fucking the Ark of the Covenant, they're just whispering in each other's ears like, "Don't let your son go to Vietnam. He's going to die. He's going to die." And they think it's the angels, and then they just disappear.
I'll be right back.
We're definitely naming our kids Cher.
Yeah. So I think your writing career is over before it even got started. Anyway, listen. I thought it was fine. I watched it in the theater. I did not do the D-box seats. I don't know why I didn't do D-box, actually. Maybe I was just being cheap. Again, as my quote there from RobertEbert.com, like, I kind of was hoping for closer to, it was definitely closer to the original two strong ones. Better than Crystal Skull. I mean, yes, it is better than Temple of Doom. It had that kind of Disney-fied effect. But I mean, I think this is also one of the challenges that we have now in a hyper corporate film industry, right? Where you basically have these big media conglomerates that are just like, we want to make as much, like, if a film doesn't make $1 billion, why fucking make it, kind of thing. Like the idea of making like a 50 million, 100 million off a film, they're like, yeah, fuck that. Like, if it can't make like fucking billions of dollars, our shareholders don't give a shit. So we're trying to do everything we can to just like squeeze everything out of a franchise, which can make like, it's the saying, you know, you can please some of the people some of the time, but not all the people all the time. Like when you try to please everybody, you end up not really pleasing anyone. You know what I mean?
Oh, you want another Marvel movie? Here we go.
Hey, man, those Marvel movies are a triumph of cinema. I live on those Marvel movies. I live for those Marvel movies.
Would you say, like, obviously Crystal Skull was supposed to be the last one, and then technically have it carry over to Shia and have somebody else take over the role?
When you're Indiana Jones, Shia LaBeouf. When you're waking in the forest, Shia LaBeouf. Yeah.
Okay. So do you think this one will do enough that it puts the cap on it, that, you know, it ends fairly? Because Harrison Ford says, like, his wish is this character is done when he's done, and technically he's done with this one.
I don't even know if that's a wish. I think his statement was, I'm Indiana Jones. When I'm gone, he's gone. It's more of a statement. It's not even a fucking wish. Like, I almost feel like if you try and make it Indiana Jones, Harrison Ford or the ghost of Harrison Ford comes up and fucks up your shit. You know what I mean?
Well, I was going to say, I think that this is the post Han Solo getting recast kind of thing. And he's like, well, it didn't do so well, motherfuckers. It's me.
Before I answer your question, I do just want to bring up the fact that, like, if you had to choose to be an actor, as a dude, especially, like, Harrison Ford is like, he was Decker, he was Han Solo, and Indiana fucking Jones. Like, the man, like the literal archetype of a man in the late 70s, early 80s. Harrison Ford got to play those characters. Like,
don't forget The Fugitive.
Yeah, sure. But I mean, The Fugitive is like one movie. Like,
yes, don't forget Jack Ryan. Jack Ryan was Jack, two
actually,
movies.
You know what? Yes, I will give you Jack Ryan as well. I totally forgot about him. But like, he had like and he basically just plays Harrison Ford, but in just slightly different ways that he is still those characters. But Harrison Ford, when you see interviews, he's basically all of those people all the time. Kind of not a dick, but just like not overly emotional about shit. Sort of like Clint Eastwood, you know what I mean? It's like the golden age of just being a fucking dude, and he took all those roles.
It was great to be young, but fire, I could be dead. And I'm still working.
We're all completely wasted, wanted to go to bed. Harrison picks up his bicycle and goes riding for 50 kilometers, okay?
What was the last part?
Can you ride a horse? Which you did, right there on screen. Yeah.
Let me tell you, yeah, I can ride a horse.
Fuck, what, 4 decades? Yeah, 4 decades. Like,
40 years,
he's had a 4-decade career, right? Which is amazing.
Well, I mean, let's see. So he was in the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010, and like he's going into his 6th.
Yeah. So to me, that's fun.
That's amazing. And 40 of it was like pumping hard, like the best of the best. I mean, yeah, Tom Cruise like makes more money and he does crazy shit.
Does
he?
Though?
Well, he makes more because he gets a lot of the back end, right?
But I think so does Harrison Ford, and he gets a lot of the merchandising. Like he'll get the Han Solo merchandising. He gets a piece of that. He gets a piece of the Indiana Jones shit, right?
Because it's his likeness, right? Like he is Indiana Jones. Anyway, back to your original question. Okay, so you got $300 million in production budget. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. We could be at six with marketing. I mean, this was marketed pretty heavy. It is Disney. I mean, $600 million to Disney though is like fucking mouse money, right? Like it doesn't mean shit.
That's 1 month of Disney Plus subscribers.
Yeah, exactly. And so it did. I've got 25 million as of Friday.
And I think it's projecting 60 for the weekend.
Yeah, so like it's got a long climb, man. It's got a long climb. We'll have to see. I'm wondering if this is going to be one of these films that kind of just stays in the theater. People just keep going and seeing it, It will do well on streaming service. Obviously, it'll go to Disney Plus. I wonder if Disney
And Paramount Plus.
and Paramount Plus, yeah. I don't know, man. It's a good question. They put a lot of money into this, and I don't know if they're going to get the money back.
Well, because I think with this one, it is co-financed between Paramount and Disney because of it. So technically, neither one put as much money in.
Sure, but let's even say like 300 million each, right? Let's say we go with that marketing budget. That's a lot of money, and the box office then gets split. And we don't know what kind of points Harrison Ford got. I've got that he got about 12 million for the shoot, which seemed low actually. It's so he must have gotten back end points on that because I think for Star Wars they give him some back end.
Yeah, because he didn't want to come back.
Yeah, and they gave him like $50 million or something crazy. So to be Indiana Jones, I mean, and he wasn't even in it as much. Like Indiana Jones is his movie. Anyway, whatever. I don't know. I can't answer your question. I don't know if they're going to try and milk this thing, or is it going to be kind of like Star Wars on Disney where they just turn it into like series, like limited series?
But with Harrison Ford, because here's my idea. Especially when he's like, I'm it, and this character's done when I'm done. And I think they literally solved the problem in which both parties can be happy in this film.
Okay.
Is you can get Chris Pratt, you can get Bradley Cooper, you can get whoever the fuck you want, right? But you're putting dots on that motherfucker's head, and it's CGI into Harrison Ford. And then that way you can continue with these films, and it's still Harrison Ford, but
it's not Harrison Ford. Oh, that's awful. I hate the whole idea of that.
And the only reason I'm saying that is, did you know in 2015 there is an unproduced screenplay for Indiana Jones 6?
Oh wow.
Made by Martin Villeneuve and Denis Villeneuve. They did it while filming Blade Runner 2049 with Harrison Ford. They're huge fans of it. And so Martin produced the screenplay like unsolicited and gave it to Kathleen Kennedy to read.
See, that's when you have that kind of like connection where you're just like, hey, so Kathleen, I wrote this script. You want to check it out? Like,
well, that's the thing. It hasn't been produced, right? Because technically they made this one. But like fucking Villeneuve, man, those guys. I don't know. I'd be interested to see.
I think that Villeneuve, I've said before, I think Villeneuve has lost his ability to direct actors, but he's definitely very good at scope, big stuff, which is funny because you go back to his earlier stuff that was very character driven. I think he's just gotten caught up in like fucking massive sets and CGI and space and Dune, basically.
That's the fucking guy with the halo behind him who thinks he's all high and mighty. Look at him.
Oh yeah, it does kind of look like a halo. Hey, actually, on the topic of tech, before we get out of here, I am very impressed with the de-aging. Like, they did it. The where we are with de-aging, like considering where we went from like The Irishman up till now. Harrison Ford looked amazing. Like
I think it's because they have so much, especially Lucasfilm have so much footage of them, right?
Yeah,
because you got all of Star Wars, you got all of Indies, and a bunch of the other films that were made. Like they have so much of that footage.
Harrison Ford is actually now using that for his Tinder profile.
He's married, man. Closer fucker. Come on.
So what?
But
doesn't mean he's not playing around.
That's the thing, right? Like, and that's why I think like with the de-aging stuff, like if they could do it, like I think so far it's only been Bruce Willis, right? He's the only one that's licensed out his likeness for
But I know of that. That's like was or is an A-list actor, right? Like I'm sure there's some like smaller people that are like, fuck it, man. I need that intellectual property money coming in.
So yeah, like because that's the thing. I think they can continue with it. Like there is, because give or take, right? Imagine, 10, 20, 40 years from now, Harrison Ford's gone, and then Disney decides to do an indie with another actor, I think that's when the backlash happens the most, right?
Well, and that's why
which,
Keanu has like in his like contracts, so like you can't do that. You can't change anything. You can't use my likeness, because he saw like going forward. I think they did like a fake tier or something. And he was like, fuck that. Like, if we go down this road, we're not even going to need actors anymore. Like, we're just going to take good actors, stick them on green screens, put them on nobody bodies, and I'm going to get cut out of my payday. So, anyway, hey, what do you think of my ball? Huh?
It's a big ball.
You like my
It's
big
a
ball?
big ball.
I got
It's a
big
big
ball.
ball.
I got one big ball. Clearly, Chris does not how to do tech, because I was not able to execute the green screen. It literally is in the center of the screen. Hold on, maybe if I do this.
This is more for the YouTube audience to see, because the podcast
everybody
audience
listening
is like,
I don't know what the fuck is going on over there. Do you got anything else? Like I said, I say go see it. Go see it in the theater. Theaters need the money. I'd like to see this franchise not be a bomb. Rewatch the three that rewatch the two I suggested. Don't like, seriously. If you watch Temple of Doom, you're going to realize what I'm talking about. Scott has no idea what he's saying. I can't believe you just watched that movie and did not find it cringy.
I've never said it like it's not to these times, but it's still, I said it's super rapey, like super rapey.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's still, I think in terms of going out and doing something new, because in reality, like, this guy's not always gonna fucking be running up against Nazis all the fucking time. Like, you need different villains.
They tried. They tried Russians and it didn't work.
When did they try Russians?
Russians are in Crystal Skull.
I thought it was Nazis.
No, those are Russians. Jesus Christ, man. Do you not pay attention when you watch these movies?
I honestly thought it was Nazis.
No,
again.
Kate
'Cause I was
Blanchett
gonna
is
say
like
like
comrade something or other.
I was gonna say like Kate Blanchett was the hottest villain out of all the indies.
What? Not the German Gestapo guy that gets his face melted off with the glasses? Oh, hello, Fräulein. That wasn't the hottest?
No. Well, technically he was the hottest because his face melted, but but I will say this before we get off. You know what my favorite scene is, and of all of indie, like looking at it now, like in 2020 vision, like eyes, is the last scene or second to last scene of Last Crusade, man. It is a fucking grinder commercial like I've ever seen one.
What do you mean?
Where you have the 700-year-old knight just like come out in the hallway, and then he looks at Sean Connery. Sean Connery looks at him. He kind of smiles, and then the knight just waves at him, and then and Sean Connery smiles a little bit more, like, oh fuck, these old guys, they're lonely, they're gonna get together. And then Harrison Ford just like grabs his dad away, and the knight just slowly, sadly puts his arm down. Like, oh fuck, I thought I was gonna get some. And that is our wrap for the day. Please like and subscribe to this podcast. Tell your friends. If you want to get a hold of us, reach us at the www.howdyoulikethatmovie.com.
Just on the topic of like consuming shit, I still remember like the amount of craze that would happen around like those types of items. So do you remember when the like California raisins were at KFC or whatever? Like our family didn't even eat fucking KFC, but we wanted to get all, what is it, 4 or 5 fucking raisins. Like the amount of hype that the marketing geniuses were able to do. It's like you could do Mad Men in the 1980s, like the Mad Men of Mattel. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I still remember remember the Petro Canada WWE glasses.
I don't, because that was never my jam. I remember the Petro Canada Olympic glasses that people would get when you fill out. How come I don't get no glasses when I get gas anymore? I'm paying $2 a liter.
Yeah, it's like you know, that was us growing up because it was 80s, not 90s, where it was just like fucking greed is good, right? Like just fucking.
They come with a pack of smokes too, so.
Yeah, I remember that shit too. But yeah, that's the thing, right? I think it's money left off the table for these studios too.
Well, I think you might have hit on is that it's more the other side. They're like, we don't really care to pay you for that for that branding.
Production by Rod Shaver, Vader Monkey Productions.